Story 1. Any disagreement is treated like a generational blood feud-level personal attack. Similarly, when you ask for any verifiable source to back the nonsense they are spewing, they respond with, "Do your own research." Story 2. When someone is called stupid or dumb just because they have not heard of or known about something yet. Story 3. Dismissing something with, "Well, I've never heard that before," and then stopping listening, as if they already know everything worth knowing. Story 4. They start loudly speaking about the latest controversial topic while clearly being misinformed and ignorant about it. Story 5. Constantly talks about how much money they have or can spend. Usually means they are not as wealthy as they want to appear. Story 6. Topper, also known as the one-upper. No matter what you say, they have it harder, did it better, faster, or thought of it first. Story 7. Me. Okay, so where did you get that information, news, or statistic from? Them. There is a post on Facebook. Story 8. When people do not think far enough and do not consider the consequences of the actions they are about to perform. Story 9. I have seen people mock overweight individuals at the gym. What do you think the gym is for? It is not just for regular gym goers. It is for everyone to get in shape. Story 10. Do you know why they changed it to Kentucky Fried Chicken? It is because it is not real chicken, so they cannot legally call it chicken. Story 11. Years ago, I went to a group dinner and one of the people was new to the group. She ordered a portobello burger. When it arrived, she said, "Oh, I didn't know it would have mushrooms." Another time, I worked in retail, and at the end of the night, we had to vacuum the store. One of the girls I worked with, who had vacuumed the front but not the back of the store yet, told the store manager. I ran out of cord. What do? I hope neither of these people procreate. Story 12. Anyone who is against vaccination because of what they have read online instead of consulting with a doctor. Thank you for the measles outbreak, everyone. Story 13. I used to work with a man who was too lazy to use protection and too careless to stop himself. He had 8 children with 3 women. Joey, I hope you are as miserable as you made me at work. Story 14. If someone says something I know is wrong and I point out reasons why it is wrong, but they argue with me and their reply shows they did not really listen to what I said because it does not address my points. Story 15. No personality, no hobbies, passionate about nothing, spending too much time consuming media, watching television, TikTok, and social media. No desire to learn, no critical thought, just repeating the same false information they hear from others. Story 16. Using your mental disabilities as excuses to be a terrible person. Please note, I have a handful of them myself, but I have never shown up 3 hours late to a birthday party with no call or apology and said, "Well, you know how it is when you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder." Yes, I do actually, but I am still respectful of others and would have at least answered one of the texts you were sent to give an update. Sorry, I got a bit worked up there. Story 17. Being inconsiderate in public includes littering, playing loud music on the train, and taking up seats with your bag when the train is full. Story 18. If you are in consumer debt and tithing, mortgage, and a car payment, I understand. $40,000 in credit cards? Maybe you need that 10%. You are actually broke. Story 19. Getting upset about pronouns or gender ideology is unnecessary. One of my biggest interests is history and anthropology. The more you learn about history, the less credible the idea becomes that queerness is a recent development. Story 21. Arguing about things that are objectively either true or false with fallacious and irrelevant counterarguments. 2. Attempting to discredit or refusing to acknowledge legitimate sources because of random, often conspiracy-based reasons, while citing the unreliable blog post of some random person as a credible source. I assume anyone who cannot comprehend why they should not be doing these things is not very bright, possibly to a diagnosable degree. Story 21. Talking about how they are not a follower is the most ironic behavior possible. As soon as someone says political correctness is a problem, I stop listening. Story 22. When I criticize a political party or politician, and someone automatically assumes I am a hardcore member of the opposite side. Story 23. Unable to consider other possibilities. What would you have felt like if you had not eaten breakfast this morning? But I did, though. Story 24. Someone who asks for advice or help, then immediately ignores any help and pretends to know more. Honestly, why ask? Story 25. People who still text and drive knowing how many accidents it has caused. Bonus points for those doing it while merging on the freeway. I drive an 18-wheeler, and they literally do not even look up. One man in Baton Rouge actually hit my trailer while texting and driving. He knocked his mirror off, then he ran. Story 26. Bragging about houses and holidays and claiming to be poor because they live on debt. No sympathy, and I am not impressed. You are a tool. Story 27. Starting fights or getting angry over sports is unnecessary. It is just a game. There are many unreasonable people in the world who start violent fights over football matches. Story 28. If someone expresses belief in any of the following conspiracy theories or pseudosciences: chemtrails, the claim that Joe Biden stole the 2020 election, the claim that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, the idea that global climate change is a hoax, young Earth theory, flat Earth theory, geocentrism, heliocentrism, anti-vaccination beliefs, support for Donald Trump, opposition to Palestine, support for Israel is acceptable. Israel has a right to exist, and so does Palestine. Holocaust denial, crystal healing, palmistry, phrenology, tarot reading, Ouija boards. Story 29. A MAGA hat, anyone of white power, Blue Lives Matter, a politician's name on a sticker, flag, or related accoutrement. Story 30. Listening to Christian nationalists speak helps answer many questions about why the United States is in its current difficult situation. Story 31. Inability to link logical statements together while making excuses. For example, they say, I could not do X because of something unrelated to doing X. I would have taken out the garbage, but I had to brush my teeth. I was going to mow the lawn, but the check engine light came on in my car. Story 32. Source is always irritating to me. If I post a widely known fact about something that has had major publicity, you can do the finger work of searching online. I'm online all the time, and this is the first I've heard about it, is such an ignorant and oblivious thing to say. Read the news. Story 33. My religion is the only true one. This book is the word of a made-up figure and explains how you should live. Story 34. They post questions on Reddit hoping to gain some kind of insight from the least knowledgeable, possibly unemployed individuals who are constantly online. Story 35. Spends a lot of money on meaningless things just for status. Designer clothes, accessories, expensive jewelry and watches, sports cars. Even more so if the person spends beyond their means just to appear wealthy. Story 36. I know one guy who turns literally anything into, the government has secret contact with aliens. Stock market plummets? It is the government doing deals with aliens. Bitcoin goes up? It is a fundraising scheme for the aliens. COVID? The government is testing our obedience before showing us the aliens. I could continue. If you think they do not even make logical sense, you are right, they never do. Story 37. Repeatedly noting that someone you are dating or married to does nearly everything on a list of unacceptable behaviors, and then saying, but I love him or her. Story 38. Communicates nearly exclusively with memes and other preloaded internet ideas. Demonstrates a lack of original thinking. Story 39. Sovereign citizen. I understood the first year or two of trying that tactic when this first became popular, but at this point, every single YouTube video of these individuals shows an unfavorable outcome for them. Story 40. I work at a bar. I cannot tell you how many people have earnestly walked in and asked, can we get drinks here? Meanwhile, I am standing in front of a line of liquor bottles and behind a beer tap. Where do you think you are? Story 41. When they ask my zodiac sign, I am a woman, and it is usually other women who ask. It is a common gender stereotype I have noticed. Story 42. I once sat down at a poker table, and the person next to me was wearing one of those hologram stability bracelets. Safety tip. Lightning can travel miles from a thunderstorm. Literally a bolt from the blue. If you can hear distant thunder, you are close enough to be struck. Do not wait for rain. Head for shelter immediately. Story 43. I don't understand it, therefore it is stupid kind of thinking. Falling for clearly scammy schemes like pyramid schemes or multi-level marketing. For that matter, believing anything is a get-rich-quick method. Speaking in sound effects rather than using words. For example, so, I go up there and it is like boom and I am all wah and then he dropped his drink and it was like bosh. Story 44. Defending general artificial intelligence. You were just too lazy to pick up a pencil or too scared to write that book. Admit it instead of being resentful that people put in the work and have lives while you were only dreaming. Story 45. MAGA hat, believing in conspiracy theories, and praising Tucker Carlson as if he is not lying for profit. Unfortunately, all of this applies to my mother. Story 46. When someone is accused of being on a list of individuals involved in child exploitation and then refuses to release the list, it makes them appear both uninformed and suspicious. Story 47. They refuse to trust mainstream news sources because of the so-called deep state and only listen to newscasters who spread conspiracy theories and hour-long manifestos delivered by computer-generated voices. Story 48. I met a man who thought Saddam Hussein was responsible for September 11th. When I said, look at the September 11th Commission report, he said they did not know everything. It is hard to argue against that much ignorance. Story 49. Thinking other people are dumb or lesser for not being exactly like them shows a lack of recognition that we are all unique, and that is totally fine. Story 50. When they have a lifted truck with low-profile tires on rims and an exhaust large enough to fit your leg into. Story 51. Having many ideals and knowledge yet not living by them while being condescending to others. Story 52. Don't take your puppy to an off-leash dog park until you have basic commands mastered. Socialize on leash. Bring your puppy to busy places and teach them to remain calm with lots of stimuli. Story 53. I'm a pharmacy technician. When someone comes up and shows me their phone saying they got a text that their prescription is ready, it is always that the prescription is due for a refill. They are always so sure too. Story 54. They respond to what they think you said instead of what you actually said. This is the case with 99% of people online. Also, people who cannot differentiate opinions from facts. Story 55. Speaking like a high-pressure salesperson with Bible verses mixed in all the time, regardless of the situation. Story 56. When I am training someone at work and I give them very clear and concise instructions, they sometimes ignore everything I said and make mistakes with the product. This can be very frustrating. Story 57. Anyone who says or agrees with all cops are bastards is hating an entire group of people based on the actions of a select few. It is literally being prejudiced and hypocritical. Story 58. Certain vocal fry, the one where at the end of every sentence there is a rising inflection like a question, with phrases like, you know and like. Just make a statement. You really do not need this much constant approval in every sentence and word. Story 59. Religion. If someone has the ability to think critically but does not apply those critical thinking skills consistently, compartmentalizes certain beliefs, doubles down, and refuses to admit they are wrong despite overwhelming contradictory evidence, then that is a consistent failure to reason despite having the ability to do so. Also known as stupidity. Story 60. When people do not use their turn signals when driving, it can be dangerous. Some people use a turn signal but turn in the opposite direction. Others exit the highway at the very last second, almost causing an accident. Story 61. Believing the world is flat is not supported by overwhelming scientific evidence. There is no credible support for this theory. Some people may choose to be part of this delusion to feel special instead of actively pursuing meaningful accomplishments in their lives. Story 62. Them. Free Palestine. Me. I need to get to work. Please get off the road. Them. Free Palestine. They proceeded to surround my car and shout at me as if I were responsible. Story 63. They repeat what a post title on Reddit Science says without indicating they read the actual article, let alone have the knowledge to critically analyze the article. Story 64. People who show off their money do so by talking, not by their actions. For example, I have a classmate who always talks about how much money he has and claims to have generational wealth. However, when we go out together, he never pays or even offers to contribute later. All talk, no action. Story 65. Anyone who gets angry towards someone who has literally done nothing to them, especially quiet people. How dumb do you have to be to hate someone because of assumptions you made about them instead of asking them about their behavior? Also, a special mention to a manager I had who told me over text that the flu is not contagious. Honestly, I should have asked what she thinks contagious means because I would argue that the flu being contagious is one of the most common things people know about the flu. Story 66. People who participate in Pride then think I am being homophobic when I tell them the movement is fixated on negative stereotypes and is being fueled by capitalism. Story 67. Believes that the government has the people's best interests in mind. This applies to all sides. Newsflash. Nothing was improved by charity at gunpoint. Story 68. Something about vaccines, something about immigrants, something about people being too sensitive. Story 69. Just saw a screenshot of a social media post where someone made their left-leaning mother sleep in a bed with Donald Trump-themed pillowcases and blankets. But it is not a cult. Story 70. A random person walked in from a newly set-up wholesale supplier. He had cap guns and we desperately needed them. Everyone had been asking for them. The person was confident about the products. After doing our due diligence, we found it was a legitimate company. The person came back with a sample cap gun that worked exactly as intended. They were cheap to buy and readily available, so we ordered 500. When the order arrived, each cap gun had a small bag of BB pellets attached, unlike the sample. Now we had 500 cap guns that anyone could buy, combined with a suspiciously cheap BB gun feature, which legally could only be sold to customers over 18. We called the supplier and he said the pellets were very cheap, so he included them without extra charge. When we mentioned the age restriction and that the gun could fire pellets, he acknowledged it. We sell BBs and knew this was a poor BB gun. Whenever a customer brought one to the counter, we clearly advised them to buy it only as a cap gun, not a BB gun. The supplier was not knowledgeable. A few weeks later, a family bought one for their toddler as a cap gun. The father returned, asking how to load it. I took the gun, opened it, and saw nothing. The gun was purely a cap gun, not a combination. Technically, we had hundreds of these guns with free pellets attached, making them illegal to sell, though the pellets themselves were not illegal. This was a case of misleading advertising. We contacted the company with this update. We received a full credit and were instructed to dispose of the guns. The next time the supplier visited, it was a different representative who said he had just started the job. Story 71. Some person on Facebook said that universities are propaganda factories because all studies are funded by the government, so everyone produces the results the government wants. This person worked in construction and had clearly never stepped foot in a university. Story 72. The moment someone says, "I asked Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer," they are instantly dismissed as a person worth having a conversation with. Story 73. Trump supporter, anti-vaccination advocate, flat earther. I will treat my child's illness with essential oil people. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.